the only living and career that I knew was professional rugby. I got my first contract when I was 19, and then did that all the way through to I was 32. And I think one of the things I learned was like the game that I loved so much, that was like, for me, rugby growing up was like a place of, it felt like home, it felt like freedom, it felt like play, it felt like expression. And then when I got the opportunity to fulfill my dream of becoming a professional player, I kind of like quickly learned that, like, wow, like once you get into this as a career, it's treated quite differently. The experience was quite different. It was everything was focused on the outcome. Everything was sort of like zoomed in terms of like you were critiqued to the finer details, and it didn't come with the same sense of like belonging and freedom and playfulness and expression that I think allowed me to be good at it as a kid and get into the opportunity to get a contract so young. And I remember thinking like, if this coach, if they just sort of kind of took me under their wing, and if I felt that they just backed me and believed in me and knew that like just letting me do my thing, with guidelines, of course, and within the team's plan, but like just that sort of almost that fatherly like arm around the shoulder and be like, hey, like, man, you're here for a reason, you got this, like, go do your thing. I think that's what I long for the most in my rugby career. And I think the way in which, the concept in which they do it was very like, tell you what to do, very regimented, very like harsh, very, trying to make guys like tough. And then so what was so refreshing for me in business was like, it was like a clean slate. I didn't have any expectation of an outcome. I remember being like quite nervous starting the business because I was like, oh shit, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I really believe in this product, this this brand that I'm creating. And so it felt like I was back being a kid again out on the rugby field, because everything I did, there was no outcome aligned to it. It was just like, I'm just going to express and learn and play and create. And so I think it was an opportunity to find that like freedom and expression that I missed so much in my rugby career.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Do you feel that your professional kind of sports career, do you think that set you up very well to go into business? Because sport teaches you so much, right? I've never been a professional athlete, so I don't know, but I imagine it teaches you so many things. You're talking about some things maybe being more negative, but without that experience that you had over 14 years and the way that you operate and the way your mind works, do you think you would have approached pure sport differently? Yeah,
I think the lessons learnt through rugby were amazing, because what I learnt was, the things that I would like to do and the things that I wouldn't like to do. I think throughout my career I was someone who, rather than just following suit and doing what I was told for the sake of it, I don't know, I wasn't trying to question or challenge it. It was just naturally within me. It was who I was at school as well. And you kind of get labelled like disruptive or a bad kid or not interested or whatever early on. But actually, I think you're just much more clear on where you want to put your energy and your attention and your focus. And so I was always like questioning things. And I remember one of the things throughout my rugby career that I very much started to question was like, how are these leaders leading? Like, is it from a place of like, we're in this together and come with me?
Yeah.
Or it's like, hey, like, I'm here and I need you guys to do what I say to get the result in order for me to feel okay.
Because that must have taught you a lot about them running a business, right? In terms of experiencing that in probably a few different ways with the coaches and teams you worked with, right?
Yeah.
And you took those learnings into it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest blessing where I took those learnings that I was interested in looking at when I was playing rugby was once we took investment on, and then that was when these new concepts to me of like these forecasts and all these things that I kind of knew before. They were like, it's sort of, to me it was like a rugby game plan. It was like, yeah, you got a game plan, but like the game plan's there as a guideline, and then when you're out there, like, you just play the game, and you look and you see opportunities, and then the game plan is sort of like there to just keep people aligned for a little bit, and then you open up opportunities. I sort of looked at like things like forecasts and budgets and things like that as like the same, because you sit there one day and you make it up. You literally make it up. And I could never understand why, when you make something up in a moment, that's not the present moment of when that thing being made up is actually being put into play. How can then 6 months down the line, can you hold yourself prisoner to something that you made up 6 months ago, literally sitting here throwing around ideas of what might happen? So one of the things that I found interesting in business was like when you brought investment in and you brought these people that had more experience than you, kind of telling you, oh, like this thing is real, you got to stick to it and you don't want to let people down, and like da-da-da-da. I remember feeling that same feeling of like restriction that I would feel as a rugby player when coach would be like, this game plan, you must stick to it and you must not go off script and da-da-da. And I'd be like, that's not the game. Like, that's not how we play it. Like, that's how you create opportunities. And so then it was a blessing, because I would think back to those things that I had analysed and looked at and learnt about throughout my rugby career. Because I always remember, I was like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like limited and restricted and leading from fear and making other people feel fear. Like, I would always try to take those lessons from rugby, and when we had these things like the forecast and stuff like that, I'd be like, to my team, I'd be like, hey, like, we got a plan and we're going to be open and adaptive throughout the plan, and we're going to find opportunities, because opportunities arise in the moment, and Puresport, our greatest performances and our greatest ideas and our greatest execution, they've been through adapting and changing and seeing things that have arisen as opportunities in the moment.